Hello, everybody. Welcome to Resilience+Rise, the podcast. It is for those who refuse to settle, who crave for more than success, and are ready to rise beyond it. In every episode, we will dive deep into the principles based on my upcoming book of Resilience+Rise, 26 miles to unleash your marathon of life. Here in this particular book, I talk about life's hardest challenges that becomes the fire that forges your boldest breakthrough. So, whether you're chasing your dream that just feels out of reach, or yearning to reclaim the passion that once set you ablaze, here we work towards finding clarity. It is not just about me talking about it, but we interact with amazing, extraordinary individuals who have gone through this particular fire and forged themselves to be who they are, and they are still working to even working to be greater. My name is Thomas Scaria. I'm a coach, I'm an ultra marathoner, and a relentless believer that everybody has got the next most powerful chapter, or it could be something which you're going on. So let's go into this particular podcast. Today, it's an honor for me to have Aysha Iqbal, the founder of Wise Communication. Aisha, she is a former BBC and ITV news anchor, and she's featured in the TEDx stage. Now, here's the nugget. She trains clients to master their public speaking, perfect their business and sales pitches, refine their interpersonal communication at every level. Aisha also shows her client on how to engage with media impactfully. Of course, she's been with the media. She knows the pages or two and perfect their screen presence. So, without much ado, but before that, I also got to say, Aisha has got another side of her. She has delivered her training not only to corporations, but also she's invested a lot into charities and educational institutes. And this has helped her to grow her reach to people who require her support. So, with this, let's welcome Aisha to the podcast. Welcome, Aisha.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Thomas.
You're so welcome. So, for people who are on LinkedIn and other platforms, they know you as okay, this is Aisha, but there might be a lot of other people who do not know about Aisha. So, if I could ask you to tell me about your journey from how you started, because people think getting into media is pretty simple, or getting out of media and then thinks the world is in their platter, they can just work around because they are a known personality. But if you could walk through some of the dimensions that you've gone through and growing to be or still growing to the person that you are. The floor is
So,
yours.
yeah, my media career is always quite a source of fascination for many people because it's quite a mystery and seems so distant and far off. But when I was studying at college and university, I had a passion to pursue a career in the media sector, in particular television. And that's when I began to forge my path in the sector. I started when I was at university working on university radio. Then I got into the local ethnic press. That's where I started to build my base. And but I still always had this kind of passion at that time for broadcasting. And then I moved into local radio, and then I was like, I'll do this for a year and then I'll start, moving into TV. This was just all guidance that I was giving myself, because coming from an Asian family and thinking, this is a number of years back, we didn't have, so much, we didn't have ChatGPT, or we didn't have advice on demand. And coming from an Asian community, this wasn't a industry that really anyone I knew had gone into. So I had zero advice. So I was just going by instinct and intuition and willpower alone. I had no clue that I was diving into the wilderness, but, along the way, just opportunities opened up. And so after local radio, I just thought, okay, now it's time to just start sending out my CV to television stations and regional stations. And then I got quite a lot of replies back. And for some reason, I decided that I'd take the one that was in the Southwest because they were
Mhm.
very persistent. And, I just thought it'd be a lovely place to be based for a while. I worked for ITV for 2 years, and then I moved over to the BBC, and I was a reporter and a news anchor there for 7 years, where I sort of, I was a news anchor, but you also do everything else in regional news. So you're also working on planning and production and reporting.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was an incredibly exciting, invigorating, inspiring industry to work in. It definitely wasn't like any other, career that I had around me, or, for example, my father was a pharmacist, and we had doctors in our family. So it was definitely something that I was doing that was very different. And so it was always very exciting to be in that sector.
If I could just interrupt over here, sorry for the interrupting the thoughts. So when you're talking about this thing, that seems to be so glossy and so like, okay, it was a cakewalk,
Mm.
was it?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't actually. I know, when you relay the story, you talk about, what sounds easy, but actually, when I wanted to get into the industry, there was no guidance whatsoever. And, for a number of years, I didn't know how, I was getting a lot of letters where there was rejection after rejection because I didn't have any experience. Because in the media, you need to have experience before you can get a placement. So it's one of the toughest industries to actually get into. So I was really, really, down at times, but I was like, no, I'm going to do this. There's no way that I'm not. And I've got a bit of a defiant, rebellious nature as well. So I wasn't going to give up. And I just persisted. It was literally through persisting and persisting. And I seemed to be bumping into the right people at the right time, who would sort of, encouraging me as well, and just persevering. And eventually one day what happened was a friend said, oh, there's a local radio that's being set up, let's do some volunteering there. So I started doing that. Then I bumped into a woman who had a magazine that she'd started, so I started writing for her. I went to an event and I bumped into somebody who was working for an Asian channel, and so every time I saw an opportunity, I would just sort of take it and go
Okay,
for it. And
okay,
then by doing that, I built up experience. It seemed like doors would just open in different ways.
okay. So what I heard over here was one of the thing was being persistent, being open to opportunities, and one of the other one was having the right people around you to at least show different doors, which could get you into the next direction.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. I think persistence was very, very, very much a part of it. If I hadn't persisted, it would have been a lot easier.
Okay.
um, but I wasn't willing to give up at that point because I was too passionate about this industry and I wanted to explore it.
Okay. And now, if we move the trajectory towards BBC, that seems to be a good place. And for a lot of people, being in BBC is like, okay, it's a different crown on your own self. It's a symbol that, yes, I am from BBC or one of the top news report, I mean, world news. Who does not know about BBC? But you moving into Wise Communication, which is your own setup, and setting up a space for UK based entrepreneurs and worldwide. How did that take place?
So I had took some time out after doing my news anchoring. I had some time out. I got married. I took a number of years out. And then it was just really, for me, it was like, what do I want to do? I want to go back into the industry in terms of like career wise, but what do I want to do? And I thought about going back into the media. And to be honest, after a number of years, it didn't appeal to me because although it was, it seems very glamorous and exciting, it is. And I'm not going to deny that. There are many aspects to it which are exciting and glamorous. There was a lot of hard work as well. So if you're a news anchor in regional news, you are working some very, very challenging shifts. So if you're working, I presented a lot of breakfast news and lunch news and evening news. So you'd go from week to week where, for early news, you have to be up at 4:30 in the morning. And then you didn't finish till 2 o'clock. The next week you could be on the evening news and you'd be starting at 2 o'clock and you wouldn't finish officially till 12 o'clock at night. And then you'd be on calls if there was an emergency, at night. So there was so many, this didn't appeal to me anymore because I'd experienced the industry, I'd seen it, and I'd also been a presenter and news anchor for so many years. So I knew, I'd had the whole thrill of it.
Hmm.
So I was just like, well, I want to do something else. And I had always had a fascination for coaching and self-development. I've always been into self-developing myself.
Okay.
I have a passion for people and a passion for human behavior and insights. And that's when I thought, I want to go into this is a profession I'm going to pursue. And also my family, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, and
Nice.
everyone likes to be their own boss. So I was like, I'd like to be in charge of my own timetable, and, have that independence.
So the question over here which comes up, Aisha, is that so you already had a background where people recognized you,
Yeah.
okay, and now you're getting into this entrepreneurship, you're getting into the business. How easy or how difficult was that journey?
To be honest with you, I have found the transition into my own business actually quite challenging. And one of the reasons
Oh,
is that the media sector is quite a creative sector. It's a very, I was surrounded by lots of creative people, and it was a different kind of mentality. And I find that every sector has its own different kind of way of thinking and operating. And the
okay.
business sector can be, it has its own way of operating. And initially, because obviously, when you're in coaching, you tend to have a nature which has compassion and a desire for people's well-being at heart. But then you also have to have a business side. But when you go into the business sector, you find that you have to really pick up on all the business skills if you want to grow your business, if you want to survive. And I find that's what I found the most challenging is having that side of me which was able to be very businesslike alongside the compassionate side of me, which is much more geared towards coaching. So finding that balance has been really tricky for me. I've had to really reflect on myself, and
Okay.
I've had to really rein in my what I believe is quite a very giving nature when it
Hmm.
comes to my work, because I
Okay.
had a tendency very early on to keep on, wanting to support people and not being concerned about so many things I should have been. And then I realized that this is not going to work and this is not sustainable in business. You have to, what I thought was selfish,
Hmm.
I thought certain behaviors were selfish. I realized in business, to some degree, you have to
Please help.
adopt certain behaviors that I used to see as being selfish, which I no longer do.
Okay. And what were that's very much insightful. What else were the challenges that you faced?
There's been others as well, because starting up your own business, you're so responsible for everything, and there's so many multiple hats you need to be wearing. So you need to be responsible, even if you're delivering workshops and coaching. You're also thinking, well, you're also in charge of your marketing, you're in charge of your sales, you're in charge of your admin work, you're in charge of every different area. And even if you have freelancers or you have people who you're working with, you're still having to, be on the board with everything. And then on top of that, we've had COVID, and we're in a time of technological and
Of course.
digital advancement and a huge revolution that's taking place. So always having to be up to date with the latest with regards to what's happening in terms of technology at a time when you're starting and evolving your business, I think has been very, very, very challenging. And also for myself, I think I'm the kind of person who likes to reach my peak potential. And so I've always been working on myself as well as working on my business. So I've realized that, for me to be able to have the life I want to live, I need to really be, I realized I needed to be a lot more disciplined with myself. I needed to really master my time management. So I saw a lot of flaws in myself that were holding me back in my work,
Hmm.
or just making things take a lot longer than they could and should have. So I've
Okay.
had to also, master myself as well
Okay.
as the business, as well as being, immersed in a time of massive change. And on top of that, the communication sector is also rapidly evolving. So when I came into teaching public speaking and presentation and communication, the style was quite different.
Hmm.
And in the last even 1 or 2 years, that's also just changed. So keeping on top of the changes within my own sector, which is moving very, very rapidly, has also been a bit of a challenge. But the challenges, I think in this day and age, you have to have the ability to adapt and to adapt fast and be open to embracing new knowledge and to be open to embracing change and transition. That's the only way that you can survive in business, whatever
Okay.
type of business that is, small or large, medium, or coaching
Okay.
or anything else.
Guys, this is absolutely incredible because what we just heard was in business, what Aisha has been doing is discipline, which is required. Uh, time management, which is required, mastering self, which is required, and there are elements wherein she has looked into seeing the different, being adaptable. These are the main factors that I have heard across. And so, Aisha, when I'm not talking about people. When I look at you, I see that okay, you know what? She seems to be such a strong personality. She's got everything looks like under control, even though she talks about getting more disciplined or time management and all that. But were there moments wherein we talk about the straw breaking the camel's back? Were there moments like that wherein you must have gone down, but then you rose up more stronger than what happened? If there were any incidents that could make the people say that, hey, you know what, that is a part of the journey.
I think that with your own business, I think that, there's always times where you question yourself. There's always times when you have to pick yourself up. I would say in the beginning, when I delivered one workshop, I didn't get quite the feedback I was expecting. And I was like, oh, sometimes I was like, oh God, I thought that would have gone down a lot, differently. And then, but there's always things where you do make errors, and I just look at it as a process of evolution and a
Okay.
process of self-development. I don't get down by things. So even if something isn't going quite to plan, I see it as potentially an opportunity for growth. Or I'm not hard on myself. I'll look at a mistake as, okay, well, that just means that I need to work on that area. I need to develop that area. I need to improve myself. But obviously over time I've done that. And now, it's with workshops and training, I get great feedback. It's all going, I'm in a place where I've always wanted to be. But of course, although I perhaps that's just the way I am. I do always come across positive and strong. I believe that's probably because I am, but it doesn't mean that I'm, and who's perfect? No one's perfect, right?
Of
We
course.
all
Mhm.
we all make mistakes, we all learn, we all grow, and we all evolve. And I think if you're doing that, that's brilliant.
Okay. So, if you have to mention some people who want to follow the path that you have taken, whether it is in media or whether it is in business, are there any nuggets, are there any points that you believe could help them to be, that could help them in their drive towards their goal? Now that you're a coach also, so you're wearing another hat. So, what are the things that you would suggest or people to be building up on that could help them to get more resilient, more stronger in their drive?
So, and do you mean in terms of going into if you want to go into the media sector, or if you want to?
Media sector, or if you want to move away from your comfort zone. For you, it was the media sector, and then you had a
Yeah,
pause, and then you moved into something which was a little different.
yeah.
Okay,
I would
pivoting.
say that I'd say firstly, I think it's really important to be realistic. One should always assess themselves and be certain that they have the skill sets to go into a particular sector. And if one doesn't have the particular skill sets, then think about whether they have the ability to invest time in developing
Hmm.
themselves. And you should always think about whether I'm right for that niche. If you're going into the media sector, so many people want to go into the media sector, but if you want to, for example, be a TV presenter or a news anchor, you need to be realistic as well and get feedback on your presentation. Because it takes there is some degree of innate talent that you have to have, or screen presence, to be a presenter. So I think it's
Okay.
important for people to, I think it's a good approach if you can, have a degree of reality
Hmm.
along with the dream, right?
Okay.
Sometimes we live in a culture where everyone says follow your dreams, but I think you need to be realistic alongside that. I'd also always say that, something when I look back, I think I was always quite a lot more spontaneous when I was younger, and I used to dive into things a lot more sooner than I should. So I think when I look back, I would always say, always do your research into the sector
Hmm.
before you go into anything. Do your research and understand what you're going into, so you make the right informed decisions. So I'd always say, yeah, be realistic, always do your research. Because when I was going into the broadcast sector, for example, I think that at that time I could have navigated my path and got into the sector faster than I could have. if
Oh,
I
okay.
had done some research. Yeah, because I went in through newspapers and then I went into local radio. Whereas if I'd done a lot more research beforehand
Hmm.
and really spent time and been more patient, I could have navigated a perhaps a faster route in. The third thing I would just say I would mention is I just think, be proactive. All the roles I gained in the media sector, I didn't have to apply for a single one. All of
Okay.
them, I've always been very out of the box in my thinking, and I would just, I had the confidence to contact people directly and say, it'd be good to meet for a coffee. I'd like to introduce myself. I would send out my show reels and my CVs. Even if there were no jobs that were being advertised, I just knew that every organization and company is always going to have positions. So every position I had landed in the media sector was all through without going through the formal process. So I would say that don't go through the formal processes as well, but also if you think out of the box and are proactive, you give yourself you multiply the opportunities that are available for you out there. And just one more would be, I would say, obviously, I think the best thing you can always do, and I'd say this because of my expertise in communication, is to work on developing your inner skill set,
Okay.
because that manifests in the outside world. So confidence, I believe, is a healthy level of confidence, not overconfidence or, because that can steep into arrogance. But developing your confidence, I think, is one of the most strongest foundations you can build for yourself in life, because people really do react to you according to how you communicate with them. And if you have confidence, you're much more compelling, you just come across a lot better, and you will just open a lot more opportunities for you because you believe in you and other people believe in you if you believe in yourself.
Beautiful. So, guys, just again, I would be putting out Aisha's page, the Wise Communication, in the comments below, and do have a look onto it because confidence is one of the subjects that she's passionate about. I've been following her on LinkedIn, and practically every week there is some article in some way or the other what confidence can make you, build you up to be a better human. Not only that could create an impact to your own self, but also to the impact to the pe- people around. Sorry. So
Absolutely.
another question which comes up is that now when you mentioned growing up, you had this dream of working towards your that you wanted to be in media. But initially in our when we started our conversation, you mentioned about the Asian background. So based on the societal norms, were there any ways that they told, why are you getting into media? Media is not for people like us. That usually is the hat which the society makes us wear time and again.
Yeah. No, my parents weren't too concerned for some reason about careers for their daughters. They weren't too
Okay.
worried about it. And so I didn't have it in that. But what the thing is, though, when I was younger, I'd wanted to go into acting. I'd
Okay.
wanted to go into other, but being from a Muslim background as well, there's certain things I wanted to go into so many different things in the creative sector, but I had to kind of filter them out because I knew they wouldn't be compatible with culture or religion. And eventually, for me, presenting had the acceptability and the decency that I wouldn't get any cultural resistance from or
Okay.
family disdain. They wouldn't have complaints and hold me back. So because I also was going across and going along a route that wasn't going against their values, there
Okay.
wasn't any there wasn't any lashback or anything like that. If I'd gone into, for example, if I'd gone into some kind of, gone into the theatre, if I'd gone into acting, for example, on programs they didn't approve of, I would have had an immense lashback. Probably would have got, I probably wouldn't have heard the end of it, because I came from a very tight knit, very close knit community in London that was very, very judgmental, very critical, and very morally righteous.
Okay.
So it would have, yeah.
So here, now that you're a coach, what advice? Of course, we coaches we do not give advice, but what suggestions would you give to people who want to pursue their dream in what is not considered normal as per the social dogma? Is there some suggestions that you would give them? Because there might be, if this reaches to maybe a parent or maybe a young adult who's forging and they are in a crux, because today the information is there. People can, as you mentioned, doing a research, people can tell what they want to do, but then there's always a mindset which could be a hindrance for their pursuing their dreams. But is there any suggestions, is there any advice that you would like to give them so that they can still work on the dreams?
Yeah, I would think I believe in idealism combined with realism. I think that's the most balanced approach with anything. So if you do want to pursue your dream, really dig deep within yourself and identify why you want to pursue it. But also, be realistic and do your research into the industry. Assess the industry, make contacts within and forge connections within that industry to speak to people to understand what it's really, really going to be like when you enter into it. Just get to know the industry you're going into, because sometimes it can be that you have an idea or a perception of something, and many people often, when you're younger, you pursue a particular dream because you've seen it on television or you've heard people,
Exactly.
and it's glorified, right? So and you just generally, that's what we do when we're younger. And sometimes when you go into the sector, it can be a little bit different to what you were imagining initially. So I would
Okay.
just say, get yourself all the information that you possibly can beforehand and get a taste of the sector you want to go into beforehand. Try and spend a couple of weeks or a couple of months trying it out just to make sure it's definitely your dream. It's
Okay.
definitely your heart's desire. It's definitely a passion that you have to pursue, because if after those couple of months of trying and researching and having the experience of it, you're thinking differently, then you might need to assess the dream.
That is, yeah, especially for growing up kids or young adults. The other day, I was just talking to this friend of mine who had taken her daughter for the Taylor Swift show, which was just taking place last weekend. And the parent was saying now the girl wants to be a singer. So I, I think so. I can see that particular thing, that when people they have got their idols or people they believe that that's the place they can be because they see the gloss on the floss and they feel things look so fun. But they got to understand the hard work which goes in building up to where you want to reach over there. And as you mentioned, being realistic and being idealistic about where your goals are, that could help you be more impactful about where you're heading towards.
And you'll reach that destination a lot sooner as well, because if you're, I think I was a lot more idealistic when I was younger, and now I think I'm a lot more both realistic and idealistic at the same time. And I think it's a nice combination to have, because you're able to use both parts of your brain, and it allows you to make better, smarter, wiser decisions and more effective and efficient decisions also. So now I was very much into idealistic thinking growing up. Now I'm very much, I'd always use my left brain very much as well.
Okay. You just mentioned a word called as wise decision, which gets me to the next particular question is that wise communication, your platform. Uh, I myself, I know it is that it basically deals with a lot of elements about coaching, communication, presentation, etc., etc. But would you tell the audience what's in the pipeline or what you all are building up to? What do you see your dream to be?
So currently I work in three areas. So the three areas that I cover are public speaking and pitching. So that's, how to be a high impact public speaker, how to deliver business pitches and sales pitches. I also do communications, which is how to be an impactful, effective communicator. And then I do media training as well. So media
Okay.
interview training, crisis media communications. So currently these are the three areas that I specialize in, and these are keeping me busy. Going forward, I do want to move more into, I do quite a lot of public speaking as well, and I'd like to move more into that going forward as well, combined with my work. And the dream, to be honest, Thomas, the dream for me would be to use my words, use my voice, use my life experience to be able to be a positive impact and to make a difference in society in a positive way. Right now, I don't know exactly where that direction is going to take me. But that is,
Mhm.
if you were to ask me what is a passion in my heart right now, that is what it is. But I'm, allowing life to unfold and opportunities to arise. And, at the right time, I'm sure I'll know.
Fantastic. And as I've seen on your LinkedIn post, you are quite passionate about the charity work and reaching out to different personalities that I've seen. Is that how you applaud, how you cheer them about the work that they do on the charity space. So I'm sure that you will do create, because as you mentioned, is that if there is a passion within you, it will be a space that you will reach at some point of time. And
Absolutely, yeah. I believe intrinsically there is a deep desire within me, and it doesn't ever go, and it never ever leaves me. And that is to be able to use my voice to make a really positive impact. So, of course, I do that with my work, but I'd love to go beyond that into different areas. And so I'm just going to let things unfold naturally now in that area. But that is where
fantastic.
that is something I'm very, very clear about.
Fantastic. So, guys, again, if anybody wants to reach out to Aisha and need any support, assistant from her work point of view, or maybe tell her that okay, this is a place that you believe that she can really grow in a different trajectory or in a better way, please connect with her. And as I mentioned, I will be putting out her LinkedIn connection as well as the Wise Communication. And Aisha, do you have any last thoughts before we can conclude this session?
And it's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's always very insightful, even when you have, when you're conversing, you have gained insights into your own self at the same time, which is always so interesting. But yeah, no, it's a great podcast and a really wonderful topic that you are currently so passionate about yourself, which is resilience, which I think in our current times is so important. The ability to be resilient, to be able to bounce back, to have strength within is so profound. So fantastic, fantastic work you're doing.
Fantastic. I'm so thankful that you just made my day more better. Thank you so very much. Anyway, guys, we stop our podcast over here. Have a good rest of the day, or good rest of the week, or rest of the time, and best wishes. Thank you so very much. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Aisha.
Thank you.